So welcome to another episode of the comically named Talking Balls podcast, which is part of the Snooker 19 PlayStation League. And I'm, Wrighto74 is the gamer tag, Michael Wright. And I want to welcome somebody I've been looking forward to getting on, actually, and he's been very helpful to cut this together. And it's someone we all know, it's Gary Wilson. So big welcome to Gary.
Cheers very much. I appreciate it. I'm happy to come on and obviously have a bit chat about anything anyone wants to hear, really, because it's nice to do these sort of things. So yeah, fire away.
Brilliant. I appreciate it. You know, I think it's good of you to spend some time with us. And I think, you know, we all love snooker, and it's a good thing for us to get to hear from somebody playing at your level about what it, you know, your thoughts and feelings, but also what it, you know, how it is to actually be at the table and be in front of a crowd and put a big break together. So if you don't mind, we'll kind of go around that a little bit. So, you know, think about then how you got into the sport. Can you go back, just take us through that maybe a little bit?
Yeah, I've probably said this many times to other people, other podcasts and all sorts, but it's the same story as a lot of professional players. Probably they've ended up getting a young table when a little table when they were young for like Christmas or something, and it was exactly the same for me. I got like a 4 foot by 2 foot table when I was basically a toddler, 2.5 years old, I think.
Wow.
And there's actually a little photo of us somewhere. My mum and dad's got it, I think, in like a little scrapbook. It's folded up on the floor in the living room next to the telly, and I'm there with my toasted sandwich and my cue, trying to put a few balls on this table when I'm like 2-3-year-old, you know. So yeah, just played on that when I was, like I say, that age up until I was probably 6-7 years old. Used to like watching it on the telly. And then I used to beat my dad as well when I was like that sort of age, 5, 6, 7 years old. I was beating him as well.
Wow.
And you could say I really wanted to play, and he decided I could go down to the proper snooker club in Wallsend called Super Snooker when I was 8 years old, and that was the first time I played on a full size table. And I was quickly making like 20-30 breaks, you know, and starting to beat him after not very long on a full size table as well. So I was sort of like I would say picked up by the local coach, Stan Chambers. He was there doing his bit behind the bar and stuff, and he sort of was watching us for a while and seeing that I was like a talent.
Yeah.
He says he said to me, "Dad, you should bring him along to the coaching I do on a Saturday morning for the juniors." And it's like every Saturday, and I started going to that, and just very early on, really, he sort of picked up that I was a prospect, and he wanted to help us as much as he possibly could. Yeah. And that's how it started. I was going there every week, and obviously trying to practice in between that as much as I could. Obviously, Stan was telling us, like, it's no good just coming on a Saturday morning. You need to be practicing as much as you can, and I obviously kind of knew this already. I had it in us already to want to be good at it and want to play as much as I could. But he sort of instilled that in us even more, that I needed to work hard and practice as much as I possibly could, and just week by week improving rapidly. And that was how it went, really. Yeah.
Well, what sort of thing did he? And just to mention, I guess Stan Chambers. I mean, he sadly kind of passed away in May, I think, didn't he?
Yeah.
But he's obviously had a big role in quite a number of professionals' careers as well.
Yeah. Basically the legend and ambassador of snooker in the whole of the Northeast, to be totally honest. Like, he was the main man. Very sad that he passed away a few weeks ago. There was so many people there at his funeral. Obviously, I even expected even more than there was, but obviously restrictions in numbers isn't easy as well. Everyone's standing outside and stuff. But yeah, I could tell that there was going to be a lot of people there, because he's just, in a way, touched so many people who've sort of played the game in the whole area for years and years and years, you know. One of just the biggest influence of snooker in the whole area.
Well, what kind of stuff did you work? Do you remember? You know, was there certain things in the game that he really moved you forwards with that got you up to the level that you got to?
Stan was, for me, he was more of like I wouldn't say an entry level coach, if you know what I mean, but he was more of he wouldn't go so much down the technical route. He was more of like a mind coach, and getting you in the right frame of mind and building your confidence. And do you know who he sort of reminds you of? He's like Mickey out of Rocky, if you know what I mean. He's that kind of character. You know, he's very sort of wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's you know, he's more about just the working ethic and like I say, building your confidence, making you feel good and all that kind of thing. He was that kind of coach. To me, he was anyway. I don't know. Other people might disagree and he might have worked differently with others. But for me, I would say he worked with me quite consistently from the age of 8 or 9 till about, I would say probably 14, 15, when I started feeling, and this is no disrespect at all, I just started feeling there was not much more I could gain from it. I had my own way of doing things as well, and there's only so much obviously you can get from somebody else, and a lot of it just comes down to practice with snooker as well. You know, when you get to a certain point, it's just practice, trying to practice with the right people, trying to play the right players and do the right things that way. But he really helped us, like I say, in the whole confidence building and in the early parts of your technique, just when you're starting out and doing certain routines and things and certain practice routines. That was what it mainly was for me. It was the work ethic. Really instilled that in us.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it, that different style? I mean, and I don't know whether to trust what the internet says all the time, but I'm sure I've read that you got your first century when you were really quite young.
9 years old, yeah.
9, God.
So I'd started playing when I was 8.5, and then it was by the time I was 9. Can't remember exactly when, but yeah, I was 9 years old, and I remember, like probably most will, when I had my first century, it was a break of 102 on one of the tables upstairs in Super Snooker. Obviously I was buzzing, like make me first 100 break, you know.
It's amazing. And that was a full. That sounds a silly question. It was a full size table then. That was your first century.
Yeah, full size. Yeah, like I say, in Wallsend Super Snooker. It was the snooker club nearest to where I live, where I grew up. You know, so yeah, it was. I think I might be wrong, but I think it was against a lad called Peter Richmond. I only remember the break. I don't exactly remember who it was against. But I think it was Peter, and I made 102. So if he's watching or listening, he might be able to confirm that. I don't know.
Yeah, he might be telling his mates about it. Oh, that time. And is it a big scene in the Northeast? I mean, you kind of get hotbeds, don't you, for sport in different areas?
Yeah, I would say so. More now at the sort of pro level. It's always been a hotbed at amateur level. I mean, we used to get, like many places around the country, we used to get pro-ams going all the time, and there was 80, 900 people going in. The main one being Gateshead Pro-Am. It used to be on once a month on a Sunday, end of the month. And Stan used to run that. He used to do like the draws and do the rankings for it and all that sort of thing. And like I say, it used to be like 80, 90, 100 people consistently every single month. Now, obviously, tournaments like that are a thing of the past for amateurs and stuff in clubs. There's only the Northern Snooker Centre in Leeds, really, that still had the capability of getting them numbers. Only a couple of years ago, they were still getting numbers like that. But it's different now. It was always a hotbed for amateur snooker. There was loads and loads of good players at county level, and England level, and junior level and stuff. But I would say, on the pro scene back then, you only really had the likes of Mike Dunn, who's been around for a lot of years. Neil Mosley it turned pro briefly, didn't do anything though, and sort of retired early. There wasn't that many. You had the likes of David Lilly still back then in the 90s. It was doing really well at amateur level. But no, like I say, on the pro scene now, it's changed. We've got like a handful of players on the pro circuit. We've got John Astley, myself, Elliot, Sam Craigie, David Lilly's been pro now recently as well. So, you know, you've got 5, 6, 7 pros from the area, where that was just unheard of like 15, 20 years ago. So it's definitely come on. And it helps me as well, because I've got obviously more people to practice against now as well from the area.
Yeah, that's cool, isn't it? It makes a big difference, no doubt. And I know, on kind of drawing parallels, occasionally I'll hark back to the league, really, that we're in, which kind of gets us together and has that social bit. But it's that improvement, isn't it? You kind of almost need to play better players to up your game, and I guess it's that thing about almost, there is the practice element, is there? But do you find yourself practicing more on your own, or do you tend to play almost like sparring in boxing?
Yeah, I find myself playing more on my own. Obviously, I still play players quite often. I go through phases. There's some players want to play players all the time, and only have a little bit on their own, and they feel they're just trying to keep themselves sharp. There's nothing really that they feel they need to work on their own as such. But I'm more like, I like to work on my own quite a bit, and then when I feel I'm absolutely ready, I like to try and go through a phase of playing people for a week or so, you know. And then, you know, if I have a couple of bad games and I feel like I'm struggling in a certain area, I'd like to go back on the practice table on my own again for a few days and try and work on them things. So chops and changes for me. But yeah, you obviously have to do that. You have to do the both. You have to work on your own and play players of a good standard as well, because that's the only way you're going to get match sharp and improve, like, in the match sort of aspect of things.
Yeah. And is there a big, again, you know, it's a question from someone who will never be in your position, but is it a big difference from playing? I mean, it's a silly question, it must be, but the big difference between playing, you know, almost on a training basis or even competitively with someone you know, and then being in front of TV cameras, there's people there, you've got the extra pressures. I mean, do you feel that difference, or do you just zone in on your game?
Yeah, you always feel that difference, but if you've not done it very much before or at all, you feel it absolutely massively. Like, I think every player will remember when they go back to the first time they were ever on TV or in front of a massive crowd or anything like that. Obviously, it is so much different. It's just comes down to that whole thing of experience, isn't it? Where you can imagine yourself doing anything for the first time, and you know, it's a completely different feeling to when you get used to it, and it doesn't really matter as much anymore. Like now, when I play in front of TV cameras and big crowds, it's nowhere near as, like, I wouldn't say daunting, but nowhere near as different as what it felt the first few times. It feels like a massive occasion the first few times, and now it's just another game.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. You know, you almost experience, to me, I've said this before, is like almost dumbing down everything to where you don't care more.
Right.
You obviously do care and you're trying your hardest, but you've sort of failed so many times, or you've lost so many matches maybe in them sort of circumstances and not played your game at all because of it being such a new thing, and obviously nerves can come into it as well, that you almost get to a point where you think, sod it, I don't care anymore. And it's not like a conscious thing you can just switch on. It just happens after so long of doing it. You just subconsciously switch off from that and just relax into it and play it like any other game. So as much as you tell somebody, oh, just try and treat it like another game, it's fine. You personally can't do that until you're personally ready. It's an experience thing. That's what it basically is. How I found it.
And on a very, very micro level of that, I mean, we have competitions in our league where they get live streamed on YouTube, and there might not be many people watching. You might only, you know, sometimes you see it on there and there's maybe 5 or 10 people or 15, but you know, quite a few of them are people who play and are probably at a higher level, and you think, oh, I really want to impress them. I want them to think he's a decent player. I've only had it once. I had it once. I didn't enjoy it because I just was really confined and I felt tight. And it's silly, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just don't flow. You
can't play a natural normal game, can you? Yeah, that's the problem, and it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating because you've worked so hard and possibly played so good to get to that point, whatever it may be, and then you kind of feel like, I've let myself down massively there, and you just don't feel like there's anything you can do about it other than try again and try again. And it literally just takes time. You need to get yourself in the position more than once, basically, before you can start playing properly. And it's frustrating,
Can you remember those? Can you remember? Is there any matches in particular that come to mind when you think back to the early days of playing in front of a crowd?
Not in particular, because they all just sort of marry into one. They all just it's like, I remember all the disappointments in a general sort of way, but not specifically any one match. Obviously, I've got specific matches that I've been disappointed about. I dropped off the tour years ago, and I was disappointed, but it wasn't so much a nerves thing and a new experience thing. It was just a qualifier for the World Championship. You know, it wasn't like I was in front of loads of crowd or TV or anything. But no, in terms of like, the sort of the ones where you get to like big crowds and TV, I haven't really got any that stand out. I just know I generally didn't play as good as I can, and it's probably because of the occasion a little bit, you know. There's not really one that stands out, to be honest.
Fair one. And I guess, you know, we can't really see what it's like between players either. You know, for all we know, the two players coming out, when you see them come out, they might be the best of mates, or they might really not have any time for each other, and it's not often that easy to see it because everyone's so zoned in, aren't they? But I mean, do you get that with I'm not asking you to name names. I'm sure you've got mates in the game that you probably have fun with and you think, oh, cracking, let's put on a good show. but there must be one or two. I'm not going to ask you who, but there must be some who you kind of think, I don't look forward to playing this guy in front of people. Or maybe not, Gary. Maybe that's not the case.
For me, no, not so much a particular person or player. More, maybe just a particular kind of player.
Right.
So I don't mind all day long playing someone who feels they're solid and tactically aware and not gonna punish you with big breaks.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I can handle myself in every way in that kind of game. I can handle myself in the tactical department. I can slow the game right down if he wants to play slow. I can stand there for hours and hours and hours, boxing away, so to speak, if you want. What hurt? I think, and a lot of players would probably agree. What hurts you the most, or what scares you the most in any sport, in snooker as well, is the powerful players, ones who are just you can't predict them.
Yeah.
Like great potters and break builders, like Jack Lazowski, Judd Trump, and the players that you can be bad, but you're just hoping they don't turn up that day when you're playing them on telly and just stop and just absolutely blow you away, like a Tepachaya kind of player.
Right.
They can turn up sometimes and just you won't have a shot and they just blow you away, and that's more scary than anyone who can stand there for 6, 7, 8 hours and just like plod around and be so solid and tactically brilliant, but they're not ever going to hurt you. You think just as soon as I get a chance, if I get a chance, I'll put them away, kind of thing, So it's just them kinds of players would scare you more than any others, I guess. But that's sport. That's what you want to be like. If you're any kind of good sportsman, you want to be a powerful player. You want to be someone who's going to hurt your opponent. Yeah. So it's just natural, I guess.
Yeah. But I guess also it must be quite hard to be the person on the other. I mean, great if you're the person at the table doing it, and you've done that as well, and you've had someone sat down for ages. But it's different, isn't it, as a sport compared to, say, I don't know, if we said tennis or something, then you're always dynamically impacting the game, aren't you? You're playing a shot, you're putting them in a difficult position. Whereas this is more, I guess, once you're away from the table, you're sat waiting for your next shot. I mean, you can't do a lot, can you? Apart from give them the evils or something.
You're, like I say, you're relying and hoping that your opponent doesn't just blow you away because you can't do anything. You're only going to sit there, and when you're sitting there, you can't have any influence on it at all. So that's the biggest difference, I think, with snooker and a lot of other sports like golf, like tennis. You've always got your next shot in golf and tennis. You play a bad one, right? It's the next point in tennis, or you're in the rough in golf. You can try and recover the situation or whatever. Snooker, you can be sitting in your chair for 10 minutes and you've lost that frame, and then it's on to the next one. And I guess pool's quite similar as well. A lot of people don't respect pool in a certain sense, but it's the same kind of thing, I guess. I mean, especially when they're playing winner breaks and stuff. You could be playing the whole match and just sitting in your chair. So it's really tough. That cue sports like that, very tough sort of thing to deal with if someone's playing really, really well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and the difference with our game, I guess, with the Snooker 19 PlayStation League is that when somebody's on a break and you can see that they're motoring, you can just go off and almost go and get a coffee, go and get something to eat, and you almost come back and think, oh, okay, you're still there, are you?
I guess it doesn't help, but I guess I know what you're saying. Doesn't stop them potting the balls, I guess.
No, it doesn't. No,
you're not just sitting in your chair stewing, I guess, though.
No, exactly. No, it must be hard. I don't. And your mind. I guess your mind could go in different places when you're sat there as well.
Well, that's part of the game, as you know. It's the mental side comes into it as well. You've got to be quite mentally strong if you're going to compete at the top level. You've got to be mentally strong, because when you get your chance, if it comes 2 frames later, you've got to try and be there, ready to take it. You've got to almost feel like you're in the zone and practiced when you haven't actually had many shots at the table. You've got to somehow come back to the table after not many shots and try and be in that zone straight away, which is very difficult to do. And that's what the years of practice try and build into, really. It's having a sound enough technique and sound enough mentally to come to the table after so long away from the table. And just be able to pot that long red and get in and make 50, 60 breaks straight away without having to warm up, so to speak.
Yeah, and I know you've got kind of some sponsorship and some support in that way, haven't you? Well, it's certainly in terms of sports therapy, that kind of thing. Is that related?
Yeah, it's actually just ended the last few months, that. But I was with John Cox, Health and Sports Therapy. So we had a relationship for, I think it was about 4 years, where he was sponsoring us, and obviously what the perk of that as well was, obviously just coincidentally really, was that he was a physio, and I'd
Right.
never had any problems. But funnily enough, after we'd been with each other for a year or so, I actually had a pretty bad back problem in Ireland. And obviously, like I say, like happy days. My sponsor's a physio, so I just phoned him up and went, John, I'm in trouble here. I says, I'm in the Northern Ireland in Belfast, and my back's gone. I says, I can walk, but not very well, and I can actually get down and bend over and play my shots, but like it's really, really uncomfortable and painful. And obviously, he's given us all the advice I need and told us what to do, how to stretch, what to take. And that was valuable at the time, to be honest. I had another moment in China just before I played Ronnie. I was on the flight to China and I got off at the other end and I'd absolutely done my shoulder in. I don't know how. Maybe it was just the way I was sitting or whatever. I'm not sure, but I was completely done in. I couldn't. It was only until just before I played him that it was comfortable enough to be able to play. I actually got off the plane, had some sleep, got to the practice room. And when I got to the practice room, I couldn't get down on my shot at all. I was about 2 feet away from my cue. So I was practicing like standing up, if you know what I mean.
God.
I was in bits. I flew all that way. I've got Ronnie in the first round and I couldn't even get down to my shot. So luckily it eased off a little bit. And like I say, John was there to help us. And he's absolutely brilliant. I mean, I can't say highly enough of him. If anyone's ever got any problems with physio or anything like that, he's absolutely amazing. He does his best to find the problem and finds it as well. He's absolutely top notch. But yeah, it was New Year just gone there. Obviously with COVID and everything, it's tough. He's sponsoring us, but businesses are struggling in general. And you know, he's obviously going to be struggling a bit for money coming in. And he just says, look, Gary, like, you know, there's not enough money coming in really at the moment. We can't really do much more. And I says, I totally understand. That's fair enough. If you want to maybe have a look at doing something later on down the line, like maybe the start of this season or whatever it may be, then obviously we can have a chat about that. But yeah, for now it's finished. But we don't know what obviously the future is going to bring. It might carry on again at some point.
Yeah, cool. And you mentioned COVID there, and you mentioned two things that are related really in terms of a place to go really. But you mentioned COVID, and you also mentioned life on tour. And I know that, you know, it's quite well publicized really, isn't it, how you felt about life on tour during the pandemic and some of the thing around almost the Milton Keynes setup and what that was like. And I don't know whether you want to say anything more about that in terms of, you know, how different it's been compared to what you might call normality.
Yeah, I mean, I guess everybody's got their own story. It's all different for each individual. But for me, it was a nightmare. To sum it up, it was a complete nightmare. It was a venue that I felt when I got there the first time, when COVID obviously kicked in and they announced the Championship League was going to be on in June or July, I think it was. We thought, oh, brilliant, tournaments are still going to go ahead. We're still going to have money earning opportunities. Oh, yeah, great, you know, like we're lucky to be able to do that. There's a lot of sports that couldn't at all. Yeah. So I thought Milton Keynes, 4 hours away, not ideal, but you know, it is what it is. Got myself down there. MK Dons Stadium, lovely venue. Sometimes you get a room at pitch side as well. Not that there's any games on, but I have done recently actually that there'd been a few football games on where we were in the room watching. Yeah, so that was handy. Nice. But I basically thought, you know, this kind of suits me down to the ground. There's no like distractions. There's no other things I've got to do. There's no. The less options I had, the more comfortable I felt, because I knew what I had to do. I turn up, I go to my room, you isolate. You have to stay there overnight, obviously. I don't know if you knew how it worked or anything when it first all started, but you had to basically isolate in your room for a full day, pretty much. Right. You were turning up at like maybe 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon for your test, and you were locked in your room. You weren't locked, but you weren't allowed out of your room until the following morning. So they would come knock on your door with food and for tea time and stuff, and then the next morning they'd knock on your door and give you a wristband if you'd tested negative. Yeah. So it kind of suited me, like I say, where there was nothing really much I could do, so I just embraced it. Just sort of stayed in the room, chilled out on Netflix, having a bath, chilling out, just doing what I want to do, knowing when my snooker match times were, going to play my match, and then coming back again, same again, just chilling out all the time, nothing really much to do. And I thought that would have suited us. Yeah. But it didn't. And I don't know, I still to this day don't really know why. And I don't know whether it was just because I got off to a bad start with losing matches that it just became a bit of a habit. Right. But I couldn't win a game for Toffee. I was absolutely hopeless in Milton Keynes pretty much every time I went down there. I won a couple of games in the league. I've won the odd qualifier, I think, here and there. But last season was my worst season I've ever had.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just couldn't win a game at that venue. But when I went to somewhere else, which was very limited, there was the Welsh Open, I think, and it was still in Newport.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I won a few games there. I felt totally different. I just felt different. I felt like it's a new venue again, something a bit more fresh, and I just played a bit better. And then as soon as I went back to Milton Keynes again, I just thought, oh, not this again.
Yeah.
And like I say, it's different for everybody. It will be different for everybody. If you get off to I can imagine if you get off to a good start and you're on a winning streak to start with, then that venue becomes in your head a positive thing. And you think that I'm good at this venue.
Yeah.
Every time I go to this venue, I'm going to play well. I'm going to do well. I'm going to win games. And I guess that's what it's like generally in snooker or any sport. Again, like you get synonymous with a venue yourself.
Yeah.
If you don't play well at a certain one for a number of times, you're going to keep thinking you play terrible there. But it's the same the other way around. A lot of people love the Crucible.
Yeah.
I've generally had a decent time at the Crucible.
Yeah.
First time I played Ronnie, did all right, 10-7. Felt I played okay. Second time I got all the way to the semis, had a great run. And just this last one there, like even in the qualifiers, I knew I liked the Crucible. I enjoyed the experience and everything. It can help you qualify. It can help you play well enough to sort of embrace the whole thing. Got to the first round, 5-1 up against Kyron, playing good stuff.
Yeah.
Didn't quite get over the line. He fought back well, but again, I just felt like I was playing okay. I loved the venue. I loved the whole thing around it. And there's other venues, players will think, I hate going there. I hate that tournament.
Yeah.
So it's just one of them. For me, last season, generally, like I say, to sum up, was terrible. And I just hope that there's not another Milton Keynes sort of scenario happens this year. Although I've looked at the calendar provisionally, and it looks like a lot of the tournaments are going to be in Leicester, Morningside Arena.
Yeah.
Now I'm just hoping that I'll like it more there than I did down Milton Keynes, because it looks like there's going to be a lot of tournaments there. So we'll just see what happens.
Yeah. And I guess and that comes back, doesn't it, in a way, back to the kind of the mind stuff and almost I guess it must. I don't think it's the same, but I guess with football and things like that. I mean, you're a Toon fan, aren't you? Am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's places where teams tend to play well. There's places where teams just never really have a good record. And,
I think Newcastle in the past, not in recent years, but years ago, I think the Dell, Southampton, never used to be a great venue for Newcastle, and we used to hate it when we played there because we'd never win. I mean, that's just one that's just come off the top of my head out of nowhere. There's probably many others, but I guess, like I say, it's the same in loads of other sports. You just get synonymous with a venue, whether it's good or bad. There'll be players who love Wembley and players who hate Wembley. It's just one of them, isn't it?
Yeah. And you've said a bit around, so I mean, one of the things I guess that stuck out with Milton Keynes was the whole thing of the no fans, almost the false kind of clapping, and the whole feel of, being introduced to a non-crowd, and, it was almost glitzy, wasn't it? But without the crowd, it was quite bizarre. I don't know how that felt as a player.
Yeah, very bizarre. Do you know what it actually felt like? And it's quite apt, this. It felt like playing the PlayStation game.
Right, yeah.
You're literally playing your shots and you're hearing that, when you play the game and it's like that sort of silence, but then you just get that random clapping coming in.
Yeah.
It was like, first time I heard it, I was like, well, where's that coming from? And it's not like dead loud, as loud as you hear it on the telly. It's quite quiet in the arena for us players and the ref. So to me, it felt like I was sitting in front of the telly with the controller and I just played a good shot, and you just hear this random applause out of nowhere and then back to silence again.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very strange.
And you've got, and on the Snooker 19 game, I think, kind of going back to Libra, one of the things about that is, I think my favourite thing about it is that they have somebody whose phone randomly goes off occasionally and they get told off. And it's just on the game.
Okay. That's actually in the game. Is that like a patch that's been put in or something? So.
I guess so, yeah. They put it in the game, so they get told off ever so often. They just get told if that goes off again, somebody will be leaving, something like that. Anyway,
really, that's good. At least it's a bit more towards realism, isn't it? Better.
And obviously the commentators, I mean, it's a game, isn't it? So I guess that the commentators have only got a stock number of things they can say, really.
Yeah.
So you realise that, well, it's when it gets it wrong is the funny bit, because then you'll play a good snooker and they'll go, he'll be disappointed with that, and you're thinking, no, I'm not. I'm really chuffed with that. That's a good effort.
It's so hard. I mean, you'll probably know yourself. There's been snooker games around for nearly 20 years now on the PlayStation, and it must be so hard because there's so many things can happen on that table.
Yeah.
To get the comments the commentators and stuff right in each situation and each scenario. So you sometimes think, obviously you can't not have the commentary in one aspect, but you think, is it worth doing? Because it can make more blunders than get it right at times. You know, they've done it with the F1 games. Totally different topic, but you know, late 90s with the PlayStation F1 games, they had Murray Walker and Martin Brundle doing the commentary, and then they sacked that off, and they must have probably thought, well, probably because it just sounds a bit too silly at times. You know, they're saying the same things over and over, and they might say the wrong thing at a certain time as well. And they probably just thought, it's better, you know what, we'll do this, we'll go a different way about this, we'll not even have the commentary, we'll do something else, and then it can't sound as stupid as well. So I don't know if maybe that's something they'll look at with a snooker game, but maybe a different avenue other than the commentary might be a good way to go forward.
I think some of us some of it will either just turn it off or mute it, or we'll put music on instead and then we'll drown it out. So I think it depends on where you're at and whether, you know, how you handle it. And it doesn't look like the developers tend to really develop it much or change much or, you know, send updates. So we're just hoping that they'll keep the stuff on for a bit and let us carry on with it.
Do you know if there's any sort of plans for a snooker 21 or 22 or anything like that, a new game? Or
we don't know. A few of us have tried to contact the guys who make it, kind of the Lab Place and Ripstone, just to say, you know, it'd be good to know your future plans, because there's a group, you know, and it's not just us, but I know there's an online tournament version of the game that you can play when the tournaments are on, and there's you know, there's hundreds of people on that.
Of course, there's a fan base there, like anything else, isn't there? So they want to know what's next.
So let's hope so. I mean, you know, especially with, I guess, with the PS5 as well now, whether they can do more to. Although I think graphically it's pretty good. I mean, how do you feel about your likeness on the your player on there?
Again, I mean, it's pretty good, but again, that's a stumbling block for any snooker game on the consoles. It always has been, like, trying to get the player likenesses and the actions correct, the motion capture and things like that, or however they do it. It's always been the worst part of it, hasn't it? Really, but they've done quite well, to be fair, with that last one, Snooker 19. It's not too bad. But it is very, very difficult for whatever reason. They must find it really challenging to get them actions right, you know. So it's not bad.
You're not too unhappy with it. You're okay with
No, I mean, I remember when we actually all had photos taken and everything for it. And obviously you get the odd players going, well, we're not getting paid for this. Like, where's our cut, you know? And obviously it must be in our players' contract somewhere. In the T's and C's or Article 78.1.2 of the players' contract, that if there's anything that you've got to do for promotion like this, that, and the other, then obviously you're obliged to do it, kind of thing. You're not going to get any money out of it or anything like that.
Like your image rights,
like whatever it is, you must obviously have to do it anyway. Obviously, it's part of World Snooker and stuff. But I remember getting all them photos taken. They take you from different angles and stuff, you know. And, it came out quite well, I thought, to be honest. Not too bad.
Quality, And how do you feel about the state of the game at the moment? I mean, you've mentioned, and I've looked at your Twitter just to kind of find out, you know, where you stand on a few things. I don't know whether it was tongue in cheek or whether you meant it, but you mentioned about bowls, and there was a bowler coming on to like this amazing, like, lights and a really big entertainment.
I'm not on Twitter a lot. I'm on it. I just scroll. I'm a scroller. I don't really go on and post things a lot. Same with Facebook. I don't really post things. I just tend to go on and have a look, and the odd time I will put something on if I feel quite strongly about it. And to be honest, I did mean that. I think snooker needs more of that. If not in every tournament, obviously, just in certain ones like the shootout and things that are more of an entertainment and crowd-based kind of event. It just seems silly to me if you've got the balls pulling off something like that. Where it actually looked like it fit as well. It didn't look stupid. It looked like it was quite, you know, normal. And I thought, well, if the balls are doing that, where are we going wrong? If there's tournaments that aren't making the most of that kind of thing, you know, the darts has been doing it for a long time. Absolutely brilliant. And you need more of that. Obviously, I respect that you can't go too far. You've got to, snooker's its own thing. It's not darts. It needs to be done in its own way. But that comment was basically just to say that like we need more of that. If the balls are doing it, crikey, there's something wrong if we're not doing something like that. Like,
Definitely. It seems like it's stuck in a bit of a position. I mean, I think Judd Trump mentioned it, didn't he, in an interview recently? That whole thing about, you know, looking like you're dressing up for dinner to play, and
it's stuck between a rock and a hard place a little bit at the minute. I think it's tough to like get rid of things that are obviously like part of the tradition of the game, but at the same time bringing the game on and try and relax things a little bit. It's very tough to do, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like to be the people in charge of all that, to be totally honest. We've all got our ideas and we can all be clever and say we should do this, we should do that.
Yeah.
But there's logistics involved in it, and obviously there's a lot of people who know more about that sort of thing than maybe we do. So who knows? But I would like to see things changed a bit, similar to what Judge Trump says. You know, just it's not about revamping the whole thing entirely, just changing a few things, just to modernise things a bit more. You know, and slowly but surely it should progress to get to even more popular than it is now. It's popular as it's ever been now, but there's no reason why we can stop here. We can keep going and keep going and make it even better. I don't see why not.
No, that's great. And I know you've had a few weeks off. You've got stuff at home. You've got other priorities at the moment, and you're in your lovely. It looks like a cinema stroke gaming
like a little
room
cinema room we had built. Yeah. So I'll give you a little. I'll show you a little bit around. There's my picture from the Masters.
Oh, very cool.
So I put that up on the wall, and I've just got my fridge and my drinks machine there. 5-inch telly on the wall. Got the PlayStations there on the unit, and then the gaming chair there. So I play a lot of racing games on that. You know. Yeah.
Living the dream.
It took a long time to get it sorted and get it right, but we've had nightmares. Painted 3 times and roofs leaking after the first time. I had to get it redone. We've had nightmares, but it's basically done now. So yeah.
Very good. And what's your thinking ahead really? And to be honest, I feel like we should have a part 2 later in the season, because it feels like there's a lot to talk about. But what's your aspirations then coming up, looking ahead at the new season?
Just the same as what I've probably had the last few years. I want to win a title. That's my main goal. I would like to win a tournament, obviously. It's rankings take care of themselves in a way. So obviously if you do win one or you get a lot of stages, the rankings take care of themselves. And I would like to obviously also get into the top 16, which I just missed out on last year. Really, I was number 17 and 18 for a lot of the season, and there was a good few opportunities that I had really to. I should have been in the top 16 at least for a few months at one stage, 100%. But like I say, I had the worst season I've ever had, the worst time probably, and so I was hanging on to them positions, knowing that I had all that money from the World Championships coming off this time round, and I knew I was going to drop down unless I had a good run sooner or later. And that's just the way it works. You accept it as a player. You know that if you have a good run in something, it only lasts for 2 years, and then it comes again. So if you don't have a good run as a player in them 2 years in anything and defend them points to an extent, you expect them to go down the rankings. It's as simple as that. So I think I've went down to about 32 or 33 now.
Right.
Next season. So obviously one of my goals is to try and get back up there and try and get into the top 16. As hard as that is, obviously. But like I say, aside from the rankings, which isn't that important, if you're in the top 32, you're generally seeded for a lot these days. It's more about just trying to win a tournament. I haven't won a tournament. 35 years old. I feel I'm capable of winning a tournament. So I've been to a final, a few semi-finals and all that, So I feel like, that's something that's my main massive goal, is really focus if I can on trying to win something.
And good luck with it. And hopefully, maybe it's a case of putting that last year or just over a year almost as a really strange one, isn't it? And just thinking that could have affected a lot of people in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be able to push that aside and come into the new season, fresh and hopefully a bit more in the place where you're more comfortable with your game and with the situation around you as well.
Yeah, well, I had a lot going on, and I've sort of come to terms and reflected on it all a lot over the last few months. And I had a lot going on,
right.
Sort of with the house and mentally. And playing was like, at the time, it didn't feel like it was really affecting you. It's one of them things, isn't it? I guess you don't feel what's going on at the time, but when you look back on it and you think what you were actually going through at the time and the things you were dealing with. I kind of look back on that now and just think that season was a bit of a write-off. It didn't have to be. I could have played well in Milton Keynes for a few tournaments and I could have actually had a half-decent year. Who knows? You never know what's going to happen, but I just felt like, realistically, let's not be too hard on myself. I had a lot going on. A lot to deal with, a lot of troubles with the house and stuff, and it all sort of got on top of us a bit subconsciously. And it got to a point where I realised I'm struggling here mentally, and that's when I opened up about it quite a few months ago. And just said, look, I'm feeling a bit depressed. I had been going through depression basically,
Mm.
and who knows whether I'm out of it. I don't feel 100% still, but it's a funny thing, isn't it? Depression, you don't really know where you're at, I guess, generally. But put it this way, I feel a lot better now than what I did 4, 5, 6 months ago. And that's helped probably because the house is basically there now. You know, there's still stuff to do. We're busy getting the garden done outside. We're getting the drive done in a couple of months, and there's still stuff going on. But the house is fine now. It's all the rooms are pretty much done. We're happy about it, and that just eases a lot of the mental anxiety. You know, like I found myself thinking of the house basically like 15, 16 hours of the day, and that sounds mental.
Almost
like,
obsession then.
Yeah, obsessed. Getting up every morning, measuring things and making sure this is right and that's right, and I'm gonna have to tell the builder this and tell him that, and this is wrong and that's wrong, and do this and where do I want that, and just the mental stress of it all day after day after day. And I actually found myself, and Robin, my partner, noticed it. I was sitting in here actually before it was all finished, and I was just sort of looking around thinking, oh, where's this going to go? Where's that going to go? And she was taking a photo of us, and she looked back on it probably about a month or two ago now. She looked back on that photo, and my face looked like it was drained. I mean, I was like a skeleton.
Yeah.
And she said you'd lost a load of weight. I weighed myself around that time, and I was like 9 stone 2 or something.
Wow.
Now I'm not the heaviest anyway. I'm about 10 stone 5, 10 stone 6 normally. Now I'd lost over a stone, and that was just in pure like, and that's me. I'm a skinny lad as well. Me losing over a stone, like, I'm surprised I didn't just float away. but like, it was just mental, like, and it was just the stress of everything, I think, you know, it was crazy. But yeah, that's hopefully mostly in the past now, like I say, and hopefully I can move on to next season and just feel a bit more like I did a couple of years ago, probably.
Yeah, you know? Getting your mojo back almost.
Yeah, and hopefully, like I say, if the tournaments start coming to different places again, and not just all in the one place, if we do sort of move forward with the times of COVID hopefully getting lost, then that, I think that'll help us a bit more again. I think I just suit going to different venues and seeing different places, and it just keeps things fresh.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope that, you know, whether you're getting some help with some of that as well, but I think it's helpful. I mean, I've worked in kind of mental health or related services and general practice and things, and I think it's helpful to think of depression as an illness. I think people almost think, well, what have you got to be depressed about, you know, or whatever, but that's an illness, isn't it? And I think somebody described it to me quite nicely a while ago about how you deal with stuff, and said it's almost an iceberg where everyone can see the bit above the water, that bit sticking out, and that's almost what you're consciously thinking. But then there's this whole big underneath the water, which you can't even describe, but it's going on underneath, and it's all the way you feel.
Can't put it into sort of words what it is. It's just it's a gut feeling in a way. Yeah, it's strange. I will say though, like, a little thanks to someone who I did chat with for a while. I haven't seen him for over a year now because of what's been going on and whatever else. But you know, Steve McLaren, he used to obviously manage England and Newcastle.
Oh yeah.
His son Josh, he's involved in doing like sports therapy.
Okay.
Like is in like the mental side, if you know what I mean. So I actually got in contact with him ages and ages ago now, and I've had quite a few sort of sessions where I just sit down with him and just chat with him for an hour, you know, about what I'm feeling, and obviously trying to improve me game mentally, I guess. The main goal to start with was just to see if I could get that extra edge by maybe doing a few techniques mentally to try and help things. And it was good for him as well, because he was doing his I think he was doing like his degree in university, and I was like his person to use in his degree sort of thing. He was using me for that, and I was him. Yeah, so we were helping each other. It was mutually beneficial kind of thing. He'd been speaking to other people from different other sports as well. So I was one from like the snooker side of things that he thought he could try and help.
Cool.
And I'll just say thanks to him, Josh, because it's sort of, if it didn't help us so much with the snooker playing, quite a few things he said that I've remembered ring true just generally. And it has helped us a little bit with sort of how I've been feeling, to try and stay a bit more positive. So yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Josh really and say cheers, mate, if you're watching or listening.
No, brilliant. No, we'll make sure we'll get this shared as much as we can. Hopefully you'll see it.
Yeah.
And it's good as, I think it's good as a, you know, this isn't meant to be gender specific, but I think it's good as a man that you, and somebody that's, you know, known in these circles, that you're saying about it as well, because we don't like to talk about stuff like that sometimes, do we?
Yeah.
I'd love to do a part 2 at some point, Gary, because I think we've got loads we could talk about, and you're really,
Sure.
you know, it's really good fun talking to you. But just to kind of round off this episode, really, for now, I've just got a few quick fire ones, if I can just give you those, and just gives us an extra feel for how you look at life and what you think. So the first one, this is probably close to your heart. First one, Gazza or Shearer?
Oh, I'm depends on the question exactly, but if it's just,
do you prefer one of them? Is there one you kind of think?
Gazza's,
you know,
just unbelievable. If you, there's not many, if any, greater England players than Gazza. Like, God, I've just got so much respect for how brilliant he was. But as a Toon fan as well, and like obviously growing up in the Shearer era, from being at Blackburn and then obviously Newcastle throughout that period, Shearer was obviously like the main man. So Gazza for the flair, Shearer for the whole years of experience with it. Yeah,
that's cake and eat it. That is. I'm a Forest fan, and I'm Stuart. So Stuart Pearce was my idol growing up.
Right.
And then he obviously went up to St James's Park as well, didn't he? And he did quite well there, I think.
Yeah, he did. He was a good part of the team for a while. Yeah, but yeah, sorry, I'll give you an answer with both names. So try the next one. I'll try and give you one.
I'm just messing about now. I don't blame you at all. It's an impossible choice. It's like picking between your kids.
That's easy. That, not that I've got any, but I would be able to do it. No problem.
Second one. This could be about style or about personality or impact. But Cliff Thorburn or Alex Higgins?
Alex Higgins. I love Cliff to bits. So personality wise, and because I know Cliff, like I love Cliff, and he's a great bloke. I met him actually, Paul Rinaldi, who runs North East Snooker Club. I'm sorry, I'm babbling on here. Tell us to stop if you want. But
no, go for it.
I met him at Paul's club, and cutting a long story short, I went over to Canada and done some exhibitions and things, and Cliff was there in Toronto, and it was actually his 70th birthday when we were there. So I was playing the exhibition and making big breaks and stuff, and Cliff was getting on the drink for his 70th while watching me play in the exhibition and sharing us on and stuff. And he's just a brilliant bloke. But playing wise, better to watch Alex, obviously, all day long. The flair, a bit of a rock star, really, wasn't he? Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, no, it's just to get a bit more feel for, you know, some random stuff, really. But I mean, I'd just like to thank you. I mean, we could do this. Well, I don't know what else you got on today, but we could do this for hours. But it'd be nice to get you back at some point. You know, it'd be good to hear more. Sure. And
I'd be happy to.
If you'd be up for that, and
definitely,
just to wish you all the very best. Well, both with the work, if there's any more work at house to do. But with your preparations for the new season, and I hope, you know, making that flying start and getting your mojo back, and
hopefully, like I say, I'll not be playing for a couple of weeks. It'll be, well, the season's been put back now to about the 18th of July until the Championship League, I think. So I'm guessing I'm going to be getting my cue out in the last week of June probably, and starting to play properly from then, kind of thing. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, well, look, that leaves all to thank you from myself and from the podcast and the guys watching. Anybody watching, you know, I hope you enjoy it, and I think, you know, Gary's been an awesome guest, really. So, thanks very much, and we'll catch up again soon.
All right, cheers.